Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of the Brockton School Committee. Before we get started, I'll read the following statement regarding COVID-19 state of emergency open meeting law. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This Finance Subcommittee meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, and YouTube and Comcast Channel 10. The public can access this meeting via the link www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Okay. And our first order of business is to do a roll call vote to meet under the revised open meeting laws. And so Vice Chair, I'm a yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello.
Yes.
And Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
And Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, I see him. I don't know if he can hear us. Okay. All right. And then again, we'll do a roll call to establish a quorum. Vice Chair, yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan. Tim, if you can hear me, you're muted. Okay. All right. So the agenda for the evening is our FY 2020 budget, FY 2021 budget, and then we'll go over any new business that needs to come before the committee. So if either Aldo or the superintendent want to get us started.
Certainly. So we'll start. First of all, I just want to say that the mayor will join us shortly. He has Troy Clarkson here with us. The mayor is attending the protest scheduled at West Middle School, and he will pass along that to the people that are there, that, you know, the school committee had this meeting scheduled, and there was a public hearing that was scheduled and posted 10 days in advance, and something that we could not cancel. But obviously, you know, from the phone call and letter we sent out, how how hurt we all are over the killing of George Floyd, and the anguish and pain that the people of color are going through at this point in time, that somebody like me as a white person could never feel or never understand. So our hearts go out to the community that is feeling this great pain, and all we can do is support and obviously work together as a school system to root out racism and injustice, and continue to do that together. So the mayor is going to pass our thoughts on to the group that is there tonight. And I just wanted to start the meeting by just saying those few words. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent. That was perfectly put. And, I know that, again, that those comments are reflected by all of us on the committee. We value each and every one of our students, and from wherever backgrounds they may come from. The Brockton Public Schools has always been and always will be a place where everybody is welcomed and everybody is valued.
So I want to thank the city, the CFO for the city, Troy Clarkson, is with us. He's here, and he's been working closely with myself, Aldo, the mayor. And we also had a meeting with the vice chair. And obviously we are now working on the FY21 budget. And I'll let Aldo and Troy take it from here and let you know pretty much the work we've been doing and what the city is going to provide us for, even though they, in the defense of the Troy and the city, we do not have a Chapter 70 number yet from the state. We do not know when that number is coming. We're hoping it's within the next few weeks so we can actually, know what we're working off of. But I want to commend Troy and Aldo for the work that they have put in working on this budget. For working on a budget without a number is something that they're not used to. So the work they've put in has been incredible. So I'll let them take it from here and explain the process and where we're at right now.
I guess I'll start off. Good evening. So as you all know, we've been discussing what the superintendent just said, that there is no number. All we've had really is the state telling us there'll be cuts anywhere from 0 to 20%. They can't tell us exactly. So using our best estimates, we're looking, not at the 20. I don't think it's that high. So we've been looking, lower than that figure. At the same time, CFO of the city is trying to balance the city's budget. And honestly, the Chapter 70 is the biggest portion of state aid that we get. So it's very hard on their end to balance the city budget. So what we've done at this point is made a list of what we need, what our needs are to move forward with level services. I've got that, projected out. And I've made a list of areas that, as we feel we need to cut, we'll discuss with the school committee all the different areas. I started as far away from the classroom as possible with my list, and we'll work our way through that as we come up with a budget to get us to a point where hopefully we don't have any layoffs or minimize what we're going to have in reductions in our budget. So, and with that, Troy, if you want to explain how you even were able to come up with a number.
Sure, happy to do that. First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm happy, as the superintendent said, to represent the mayor as he is, I think, bringing the thoughts and the feelings of all of us to the gathering right now. As it relates to the topic of school funding, I can tell you, some of you I know better than others, but I've been involved in municipal government in one form or another since 1993. And there has never been a circumstance that I've seen that comes close to this. It's been a real challenge, but I can tell you that the city is well served by the team of leadership that you have on both the school and the city side. We have worked tirelessly and in constant contact and collaboration with one another. And that has really, I think, been a key to this. Throughout our planning to get to where we are today, there hasn't been a school in a city, there's been one Brockton. And I know that's a phrase that's used quite a bit, but it's been true in this circumstance. And really, it's been a pleasure for me. I've been here a little over a year now to work so closely with Mike and Aldo, and of course with the mayor to try to come up with a solution. At all times during our discussions and deliberations, the preservation of jobs, both on the city side and the school side, has been paramount. And so we've really tried to come up with a way that we could both responsibly make predictions and put forth a budget while also trying to preserve jobs, because estimating revenues on the high end is easy, right? And we could have easily done that. However, our experience tells us, and our colleagues throughout the Commonwealth and other gateway cities tell us, that we have to be conservative in this instance. So what we've come up with after many different iterations is an estimate of a 20% reduction in what we call state aid. So that's other than educational aid. It's now called unrestricted general government aid. For those that have been around for a little while, it used to be called lottery aid. We are projecting a 20% reduction in that component. Chapter 70, which overwhelmingly is the largest chunk both of our funding for education and of the city budget overall, is generally around $200 million a year. And so we've gone back and forth. I've talked to many of my colleagues mostly in cities, but also in towns, just because I have some contacts in towns where I've worked over the years. With members of the legislature. The mayor leads a call every Tuesday with our legislative delegation, our 3 representatives and the senator. Many, if not most of those, your superintendent and school CFO join in. So that really has furthered that circle of collaboration. There's no easy answer to Chapter 70 because nobody knows. So what we've been told is anywhere from level funding to a 20% cut. Well, a 20% cut in Chapter 70 for the city of Brockton means $40 million. That, of course, would be catastrophic. So what we've come up with is a scenario we believe, and when I say we, I mean your leadership team is responsible and I think can get us to a place where the impacts on both the Brockton School Department and the city are minimized. But they're also realistic so that when the state does finalize its budget, we won't be further negatively impacted. So 20% on state aid, and we're predicting a 5% reduction in Chapter 70. Generally, with a 5% reduction in Chapter 70, that would result in city non-net school spending right around $161 million. However, because we've been working so closely together, the city has, in the last couple of months throughout this pandemic, has set aside some excess money, and sitting before the city council right now are 2 separate orders to transfer about $3.5 million into stabilization that we then intend to take back out to balance next year's budget, FY21. And in addition, one of my responsibilities is to manage our health insurance trust fund, which I'm happy to report has been performing very well over the last couple of years. We're in a position where we can offer a premium holiday again to our employees sometime next year. The advantage to that it also gives us an opportunity to get some relief on the premiums we pay, or the costs we pay, excuse me, out of the budget. So that's about a $4 million savings. So overall, we believe we can get the city's budgeted contribution to the Brockton School Department up to close to $166 million for FY21. That's not at a level budget from last year. That's a few $1 million shy of that. It will have some impacts, but I think that is responsible. I think it's something we can all stand behind. And because of the ongoing impacts of COVID-19, it will have fewer impacts than it would have if we were opening school in September as if it were a normal year. Just a couple more things, and then I'll gladly answer any questions. This isn't our final analysis, right? This is our best estimate based on where we're at right now and the number that the mayor plans to put before the city council when he files the budget on the 15th. Should there be any changes, should the Chapter 70 number from the legislature when they finally vote a budget be any higher than that? Should there be in the HEROES Act, the legislation that's currently on its way to the United States Senate, provide direct relief for municipalities? Or should there be other sources of revenue that allow us to increase that funding? We can and we will do that. So this is step one, and what we anticipate will be a multi-phased process to try to fully fund the schools for next year. So this number is what we'll start with, and I can assure you, under the mayor's leadership, the conversations between the superintendent and Aldo and the mayor and I will continue on a regular basis. And we'll do our best to continue to improve on that number. But I think this is one that is both responsible and reasonable. So with that, I hope I provided a detailed introduction as to where we're at, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just wanted to jump in and chime in. I would say, first of all, you said a few things that were spot on that I just want to reiterate, that this is, especially for our new members, this is a starting point. This isn't, the final, this is what we're opening schools with budget. And again, you said responsible and realistic, and I think that's you hit the nail on the head there. And unfortunately, I think at the beginning of this year, we had hoped that we would have passed the budget and it would be, done by now. Unfortunately, where this is the starting point, and this will, as it has in many of the past years, we'll continue to work on the budget through the summer as more information becomes available, and and then we can make the adjustments we need to make. So, I appreciate everything you and Aldo and the superintendent and the mayor are doing, and it's not easy to put this together in this situation. Any comments or questions from the members of the committee?
Hi, Mark.
Yes, Mr. Minicello.
And just to reiterate, we usually, every year for the past, I would say 8 years, excluding last year, we have gone into this with the same unfortunate financial situation where we would have many tiers to our budget, meaning we prioritize different items. And as money became available, we would, through that identification of priority, we would add items back. So that was with certain programs, with certain personnel, with certain materials. So like you said, this is not something uncommon. It's just unfortunate that we continue to do that. But as part of our budget process, we will be prioritizing and having several tiers of those priorities. And as money becomes available, then we loosen up, we bring back certain items, be it personnel or materials or programs, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we'll do. We'll get through this first part, where we have to pass some kind of a budget to present to the city council, and then we'll take it from there. And again, as more information and more numbers become available and hopefully become a little more concrete, we can make the adjustments. And like Mr. Minicello said, we set our priorities and bring things back in that priority order. Any other comment from members of the committee or the superintendent?
It's just, we're hoping, we are getting some indication from the commissioner's office that there could be a Chapter 70 number before the end of June. I know that he is being pushed by the Superintendent's Association. The state, the Beacon Hill is being pushed to get that number out, not only from Superintendent's Association, but from the Association of School Committees, because this is obviously important to especially the gateway cities who rely on state funding. 80% of the budget is state funding. And also from the MTA is really pushing as well. And Kim has a meeting this week, and hopefully, and she gives us updates when she gets them from the MTA. And again, there are a lot of organizations that are pushing the state to get us that Chapter 70 number, knowing that June 15th is the deadline. I mean, we have June 12th here, but June 15th is when RIF notices have to go out for teachers. That's the law. That's actually state law. So, with that law in place, it would be very helpful for the state to get us a Chapter 70 number, because it puts a lot of districts in a bad spot if you're sending out, more RIF notices than you have to. And then you have to, start paying unemployment in July, and then you're able to call, those people back before the end of the summer, but you're still paying out unemployment in July for people you're going to call back. It's kind of you don't want to ever give them a RIF notice because it's a waste of money. They were self-insured. We pay unemployment out of the city budget, and we'd rather not do that. And we'd rather use that money for programs, for teachers, for paras, for services, rather than pay it out in unemployment because the state is late getting us a number. So we're really hoping that the pressure is going to get us a Chapter 70 number. I know they continue to talk about a 112 budget, but that Chapter 70 number is something they really have to get us sooner than later.
Yeah, any other comments from the committee? All right, I think I just want to add too that, I can't believe that they haven't, I mean, the governor's got to have some options he's considering. I mean, I know that there's a revenue shortfall with, the pandemic and everything, and I think we all get that. But at this point, it's time for the governor to make some decisions about how he's going to handle that and, give us a number so that we know how we're going to open schools and what that's going to look like. And of course, so we can, make sure we meet all the obligations, contractual obligations and things that we have as far as RIF notices and all of that. But again, I think it's time for, the governor to decide how he's going to handle his shortfalls and let's move forward with this. So I see the mayor has just joined us, and I wanted to ask if he wanted to, before we move on, we just finished up the budget discussion. Before we move on, do you want to make any comment?
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. I was just up at the peaceful protest at West Middle School. I was probably over 350 people, very respectful. I indicated again why the superintendent and some people couldn't be there from the school committee because it's an extremely important night in terms of the future of the boys and girls in the Brockton public school system for budgeting, and they all applauded and they understood that. So, I just want to, first of all, thank everybody for working together. I want to thank Cynthia for her revisions to that, and they were appropriate, and thank you for that. In terms of the letter that's going out and the email that has been sent. But I'm sorry that I'm late. Troy Clarkson is on. Is that correct? CFO?
Yes.
City of Brockton?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
So since this is new for me and Cynthia and Tony, right? I just want to make sure I understand the process, and maybe although you can assist, is this at this time where I would give the figure of the dollar amount that would be considered, and then the public hearing, and then ultimately it would be heard again later this week?
Yes, usually when the budget is running, closer to when the governor and the House put their numbers out, usually we have this meeting probably 2 or 3 weeks earlier. So by the time we get to the public hearing, we kind of know where we're at. But because the state has been basically dragging their feet on this, we haven't reached that point yet. But usually we'll present a figure to you and ask you to try and meet it. But we can't even present a figure to you if we don't know what Chapter 70 is. So what we're doing tonight is, getting a feel from you of, you have to submit a budget. So
Yep.
What figure are you going to budget so we can begin to work towards that number? If it gets better later, we can add to it later.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aldo. So I could just, and I did catch what the vice chairman was saying in terms of not having the number. Let me just explain a couple things in terms of how we're trying to budget under Mass General Law. As mayor of the city of Brockton, I need to present a budget by a specific drop date to the city council. When we give city budget, we also give the school budget to the council, and they'll go through their hearings. That's the process. That's the legislative endeavors that need to happen. The fact that we don't have Chapter 70 funds from Beacon Hill is very troubling. I've been on for the last 2+ months, 4 calls a week to try to get some guidance. Today, we were on a call again every Tuesday at 2:00. We're on a call with the state delegation, the 3 reps, and the Senator Brady, with Aldo and with Superintendent Thomas and with Mr. Clarkson from the city side. Today, we actually invited Kim Gibson from the BEA as well. Unfortunately, our dedicated state delegation is not given any guidance yet. They don't have the numbers yet. So we are handcuffed right now. So we can only do a guess. But what I will say is we have taken an approach to try to minimize layoffs, number one. And number two, try to come up with a dollar amount that is going to be manageable on the school side and on the city side. if the federal government comes through with some relief on the local side, or if we get higher dollar amounts contributed from the governor and from Beacon Hill, then we can make adjustments, and we could always do supplemental appropriations in the supplemental budget at that time. But what we decided to do after speaking to 19 different mayors Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday nights, and talking to Jay Condon, former CFO of the city of Brockton, who's a consultant, with Troy Clarkson, with Aldo, with the superintendent, with the BEA, we have to take an approach that we can present a number that we can work with. And the vice chairman has been a good advocate on this as well. So what we decided to do is on the school side, the Chapter 70 funds, I have heard potentially up to 20% cut, 10% cut, 5% cut, level funded. That was originally. Within the last 3 or 4 weeks now, school committee members, we're hearing more of 5 to 10, hopefully level funded. The UGGA, which is the additional funding, which is the lottery, the old lottery aid, doesn't impact the school side. It's strictly on the city side. That is going to be a 20% cut, and that's what I've budgeted. So 20% cut on the city side. On the school side, after doing our cost analysis, we've come down with a 5% cut on Chapter 70, 5% cut. And Troy, you can, in your role as the CFO, you can help, and Aldo can help as well, the school committee members in terms of what that calculates to. But the hard number that will be presented tonight to the school committee and to the superintendent is $165,927,020. So it's 165,927,020. That's the number that we're going to present on the school side. And that's the number that we all feel as professionals collectively that we'll be able to have a manageable working budget. And then we hope to alleviate that with some aid either on the federal level or more importantly on the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. Any comments or questions from the members of the committee? Okay. And we'll have a few meetings that will get scheduled this evening in the our full committee meeting. I have a few things for items to refer to subcommittee, so we'll get those meetings scheduled and on the calendar so that we can do our due diligence as a school committee to, go through the budget and determine where we want to allocate the funds. Okay. So that's the FY 2021. Did we have anything under FY 2020 budget? Or
Simply, I'm tying up the FY 2020 budget. As I've spoken over the past few weeks, we've held off on payments to transportation vendors as we turn some of that money back to the city. As we near June 30th, I'll be negotiating if there's anything left over to possibly cover maybe insurance costs for some of our private transportation vendors. As it stands right now, I'm going through every account, trying to preserve every dollar we can. We've probably spent over $500,000 already towards the COVID costs in this budget. So those are all items that I'll prepare and submit to the county for reimbursement. Those, when they get reimbursed, will go back to the city, and then we'll discuss what happens at that point with the funds. But this is the end of the year, what I call end of year cleanup. I go through and look at every purchase order, see what's outstanding, see what we can delete, see what costs we can shift to grants to use up all our grant funding. So it's basically all accounting and accounts payable at this point as we near June 30th. So for me, it's a tight wire, but we meet it every year.
all right. Well, thank you for your work on that, Aldo. I know the year end is a lot of work for you and your staff. So, all right. Do we have any items under new business? Anybody? Okay. All right. If there's nothing under new business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. So we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who seconded?
Mr.
What's that?
Sullivan seconded.
Mr. Sullivan seconded. All right. Thank you. I couldn't quite catch who that was. All right. So I'll call the roll on a motion to adjourn. The chair, Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
All right. And Vice Chair, yes. Ms. Azak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned. Don't forget, we're right back here at 5:45 for our public hearing on the budget.